will they treat these nominees and how they choose to oppose some of them? Do they ask enough questions about RFK's anti-vax status, Hegseth's lack of experience in management of any kind, Gabbard's questioning of her own intelligence committees, or all the questions around Gaetz, or do they act as a rubber stamp? It's a big indication of how they'll act for the whole presidency moving forward.
Yeah, Eugene, that really is the big difference. In 2016, the picks were establishment. Now it seems like it's all about loyalty. Matt Gaetz seems to have one of the toughest paths. A number of senators privately telling NBC News that they think it's going to be very tough for him to get confirmed. How do you see this playing out?
Loyalty and also a disdain for the exact agencies that they would be in charge of in a lot of these cases too. For Gaetz, I think he is probably the easiest person for senators to behind the scenes say, I'm not with it, because the kinds of allegations that we've seen publicly already, a lot of it already happening, is not that he doesn't have experience. It's that, allegedly that he had relations with women who were under 18, girls who were under 18 years old, right? But the difference is, this happens all the time with Republicans. We've seen it for years. They say a lot of things to us behind closed doors, and then we watch them walk right up to the cameras and say the exact opposite, right? Or, more importantly, they vote the exact opposite. That has happened over and over and over again. And so there's a possibility that Gaetz here might not become the Attorney General, not through the normal process, or he might, because the senators are going to do, likely, the rubber stamping aspect of it. The ones to watch are the ones who are up in 2026, and the folks who are in the kind of bluer, purpler states who are safer. People like Susan Collins, who probably, if she goes against Gaetz, are going to get more support in her home state.
Yeah, and of course, Lonnie, Gaetz has denied any wrongdoing. You just heard Senator Mark Wayne Mullen say he hasn't decided how he's going to vote yet, but he does want to see that report from the House Ethics Committee.
Yeah, look, the advice and consent function is a serious function. I think a lot of senators will take it very seriously. And 53 is a significant majority for Republicans, but it's not 60, right? And so it doesn't take all that many Republicans to peel off before there is a problem there. But obviously, there's a focus on some of these nominees. If you just step back for a minute, though, there's a lot of nominees that aren't getting as much attention that I think are actually very, very good choices, whether it's Doug Burgum to deal with some of these issues around energy costs, which are rising in America. Marco Rubio has strong bipartisan support. We see that with Elise Stefanik. So I think that you can spend time talking about the controversial ones, but the reality is there are some very good appointments here, too, that I think aren't getting a lot of attention and should, because they're important from a policy perspective.
Jen, you were in the Biden administration when the president was making his picks to fill out his cabinet. Talk a little bit about the high stakes of a process like this and what your takeaways are.
Well, what we're seeing here play out is clearly this is not how a normal process goes. And how a normal process goes is there's an extensive vetting process where candidates are asked everything about their personal lives, everything about their finances. Clearly, we're not seeing that right now. I understand your point here, but if you look at two of the big four, as we can shorthand them, to the Department of Justice and the Secretary and the Department of Defense, you have nominees that are not qualified and have major ethical issues that are publicly known. So I think the lack of focus on some of the other nominees is more because that is quite alarming to not just Democrats, but Republicans as well. And I think there's an ease here in just focusing on what the tabloid headlines are. And I would hope, and I would advise Democrats not to just do that, right? Because it's easy just to focus on, he had allegedly had sex with a minor. He's also not qualified for the job in multiple of these cases, and that's the key thing here.
What about that, the ethical questions?
Well, look, the ethical questions are serious, but I would say we have seen nominations before from presidents of both parties where there have been ethical and substantive issues. Let's not forget, we had a nominee for HHS secretary in this administration who had never dealt with health care before being nominated. So I think the notion that
I'm not here to defend. He was the Attorney General for the state of California. This is a little bit of a different.
He had experience suing healthcare companies, but not anything to do with healthcare.
The issue here that I'm raising, that I hope that is part of the process here, not just the ethical questions, and this is my point, is somebody who, yes, he was a military veteran, and that should be honored, but he is somebody who has never overseen an entity that is as large and as expansive as the Department of Defense be sitting in the Oval Office, sitting in the Situation Room, advising the president on the lives of servicemen and women? Should he be the one sitting next to his counterparts overseas?
Let me get
I
these
think the
guys
speed
back
at
in.
which these nominations is coming out is forcing us to have a lot of these conversations, and I think forcing Republicans to have answers. They don't have answers yet, because remember, last time he was elected, Mr. Trump didn't make a single nomination until December. We are seeing key positions rolled out one after the other, which raises questions about how those decisions are being made. It also makes it harder to ask questions.
Eugene, what about the tension between, yes, you have the ethical questions, but then also the questions about whether these folks, some of them, are actually have the right experience for the roles that they're being picked for?
Yeah. To Jen's point, if Democrats can convince enough senators, Republican senators, on the issues and the policy prescriptions and whether or not these people have the management experience, that's probably a better lane for them to try to do this in, right? Because you're not going to see them. What we've seen from Republicans for a long time in the Senate and the House is that, a lot of the tabloidy stuff doesn't bother them, right? And that has been key as Trump has run the Republican Party. So if Democrats can do that, talk to them behind closed doors, and they can do a pressure campaign, right? That's a question we've been asking a lot of both House and Senate Democrats. Are you guys going to work on a pressure campaign publicly to convince some of these senators to do the thing that they're saying behind closed doors that they already want to do?
And you have to pick one. This is the hard
Exactly.
thing for
You have to
Democrats.
pick. We can't do all of them.
Correct.
And the public-private thing is important too, because the vote to make Senator through Majority Leader was a private vote. They will have to publicly defend votes for the nominees.
All right. Well, great conversation, guys. Stand by. We have more to come. When we come back, President Biden's thoughts